All right, so this is the remainder of chapter 8 for child development. So we left off in class with talking about Vygotsky. And so remember, for Vygotsky, there is an emphasis on the social interaction piece that enables advancing cognitive skills. So someone who's considered to be a more modern researcher continuing the work of Vygotsky, the woman that you see highlighted here, Barbara Rogoff. And so Barbara Rogoff, you'll see in the video that I will post here, she studied indigenous families, so the Mayan families, for example, in Central America, and found that instead of giving children explicit instruction on what to do, Mayan families were more likely to use what Rogoff calls guided participation. So in guided participation, instead of giving the child explicit instructions or directions, you instead maybe model something for the child and, kind of give the child some cues about how to go about recreating what they have just seen. So for Vygotsky and also for Barbara Rogoff, they talk a lot about this process of scaffolding. So scaffolding, very similar to what you would use if you are doing work on the outside of a house. So scaffolding is like those little layers, right? Those ladders that we build outside a house. And the same thing is happening here with some kind of task. So with scaffolding, you are supporting the child's development kind of little by little. You can almost think of it as like baby steps to get that child to advance to the next developmental level. So think, for example, a child who's learning language. Well, if you wanted to scaffold that experience, you could give them the reinforcement as they start to put words together, as they start to form simple sentences, as they start to sound things out. And all of those would be scaffolding types of experiences. All right, so we're moving into language. So big advances, right, that are happening in language development during this particular part of the lifespan. So one of the big things that we see is what's called fast mapping. So during between the ages of 2 to 4, children rapidly pick up new words, new vocabulary, and they do this very, very, very quickly. So their expressive vocabulary, what they say, their receptive vocabulary, what they can understand, this expands enormously. So for example, children only understand about 170 words when they are 16 months old. But by the age of 5 or 6, children who English is their first language can understand the meaning of about 10,000 words. That's crazy, right? Wow, a very short period of time, but they have amassed quite a bit of understanding. So children learn words in lots of ways, but one of the ways that they use it is through this process of fast mapping. So children will basically use the meaning of the word, they'll infer the meaning of the word based on the context, and then they will use that to help them kind of understand. So to give you an idea of what this looks like, this is something that is called the WUG test. Okay, so WUG is not a real word, right? It's a made-up word. And so we wanted to see essentially, would children be able to infer based on the context and also based on grammatical rules that we apply in English? Would they be able to follow those? Would they be able to understand the little WUG that you see presented here? So they showed children this and they said, this is a WUG, right? Now there is another one. There are 2 of them. There are 2, and they would ask children to fill in the blank. And guess what they said? WUGs, right? They put the S on the end. So that gives us an idea that children are starting to understand those grammatical rules, and they are starting to apply them even when it's a word they've never heard before. And in this case, even when it's a word that doesn't even make sense because it's not a real English word. There's other examples also. So your book talks about teachers asking children to bring them the chromium tray, which also is not a word, right? That's not a real color, but children use the context clues to infer that one particular tray was the chromium one, and the other tray that was available was not. And so they're using that context to fast map and very, very quickly teach themselves the words that they know, right? So very exciting. All right, so this video here, and I will ask you to watch this one, it really highlights the social skills milestones that children are going through in early childhood. So this is from the perspective of a speech language pathologist, and she is talking about pragmatics. And so pragmatics, when we're talking about that for language, is using language to achieve communication goals or social goals. So children in this stage of development start to do things like take turns. They start to stay on topic. They need to use pragmatics to clearly convey a message to someone else, to ask for clarification when they don't understand something. They also need to use things like nonverbal cues to be able to successfully communicate and achieve whatever their social goals are. So watch this video and you will see that there are a lot of different aspects to language that children in this particular stage are becoming much better at. All right, so there's also another video here that we would have watched in class about the benefits of bilingualism. So for bilingualism, one of the primary benefits is that it seems that people who fluently speak at least 2 languages, that they tend to be a little bit more flexible in how their brain processes information. So instead of processing on just one hemisphere like monolingual, so people who speak one language do, people who are bilingual instead will likely process on both sides of their brain, right? So both hemispheres of the brain. So the result of that could be increase in creative thought. So watch this video also to see about the benefits of bilingualism. All right, so the next thing that we're looking for here is what's called emergent literacy and phonological awareness. So in this video, and I will post the link for this video here, I want you to look for anything that you can see that would indicate that this little girl in the video is gaining an understanding of sounds, okay? So that could be connected to letters, so that's your phonological awareness piece. And if she's gaining an understanding of what we would call kind of pre-reading skills, so skills that need to be in place before she will actually be able to read. And so we refer to those as emergent literacy. Okay, so in emergent literacy then, all kinds of skills classify as emergent literacy. So if you've been at a preschool classroom, you may have seen teachers kind of explicitly instructing children in emergent literacy skills. So for example, when I worked in Head Start and I would be there during story time, the teachers would always show a book. Let's see if I can, we'll use my folder here. So they would say, this is the front of the book. This is the back of the book, and this is the spine of the book. So they're basically teaching children that this is the front, right? And that we open the book this way, right? So we open it that way. In English, we read from left to right, okay? So all of those are examples of getting children ready to be able to start to use those literacy skills to be able to start to read, right? So these emergent literacy skills then, they consist of things that are related to print, okay? So that's like seeing words, so that would be through books, but it's also related to the oral language skills that they will need to eventually be able to read, right? To actually be able to put those letters together. And so children are developing these skills long before they can ever actually read. One of the things that children need to learn how to read is an understanding of what's called this phonological awareness. So phonological, whenever you see this word or phonology, always think sound, okay? So we're talking about the child being able to understand that particular letters make particular sounds, being able to understand, so in English, for example, we put 2 letters together to create one sound. So CH, right, is the sound that that makes. So that would be an example of phonological awareness. And so children who get direct instruction in this are oftentimes better readers compared to children who do not, because of course you need to be able to understand those sounds to be able to put them together, and also to be able to what we call decode, which is to be able to sound out words so that you can actually read. All right, so this is another video here on reading to children and socioeconomic status. So there is a large body of research that shows that middle and upper income children have a bit of an advantage when it comes to being read to. So middle and upper income families are more likely to read books to their children. And low socioeconomic status families are less likely to read these books to their children. And so, of course, we know that this has a direct impact on children's oral language skills and also things like their memory. So constructing a story, being able to follow it, being able to recall it from start to finish. So when we read out loud to children, it helps to promote their memory skills. It also helps promote their language comprehension skills. So they listen and then they have to understand what they heard. So there are many intervention programs that focus specifically on providing books to low-income families so that they can provide that same kind of opportunity for their children. All right, so let's talk about mathematics. Yes, okay, so big things going on here in terms of understanding of numbers, understanding mathematics. So by about 3.5 years, children start to understand basically what counting is, right, and what counting means. And as they start to understand that numbers are symbols, right, that numbers can represent something bigger, numbers can represent a quantity, they're also learning other important basic math principles here. So the first one is what's called a one-to-one principle. So one-to-one principle means that one number applies to one object. So if I say the number 1, if I'm counting something in a list, 1 applies to just one object, 2 applies to a separate object, 3 applies to another object, and so on and so forth. They also, and they might struggle with this a little bit, but they'll get it eventually, they also start to understand what's called the stable order principle. So stable order means that the order of number words always goes in exactly the same order. It never changes. It is always 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and 5. It never changes, okay? So they understand that that is happening in a stable order. The other thing that's going on here too is what we call this principle of cardinality, right? So cardinality. So with cardinality, the idea is that if I'm counting things in a list, when I get to the last number in that list, that tells me how many items are in that entire list, right? Or in that entire set. So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there are only 6 items in that list, if I understand cardinality, I know that 6 items are on that list. 6 is kind of the final number that represents what's actually in that list. All right, so let's talk then about influences on early childhood development. So early childhood, there are a number of different programs that are out there. Head Start is one that is just near and dear to my heart because I did research in Head Start settings for many, many years. So Head Start is a federally funded preschool program here in the United States. The goal is to try to provide a high quality preschool experience. So high quality preschool experience for primarily for low-income children, okay? So that's the goal. So for a Head Start Center to be operational, about 90% of the children who attend must be low-income. And it was started because we know that many low-income children are not starting kindergarten with the same kind of set of opportunities compared to middle and high income children. So for children to be ready to learn in kindergarten, they need to have some kind of high quality preschool experience. So high quality preschool, I will post for you the National Association for the Education of Young Children, the standards for what a high quality preschool program looks like so that you can see, and then also potentially that you could use that to evaluate a preschool program if you do decide to have children one day, or if you already have them, that you could use those standards to help you figure out if it is a high quality program or not. Okay, so for Head Start then, when we look at the research, so what does the research tell us about the benefits of Head Start? So we see that when children who have taken part in Head Start compared to children who have not, when they start kindergarten, the children who were in Head Start see advantages, so small but significant benefits in their vocabulary, their emergent literacy, and also in numeracy, so their ability to understand numbers. However, you knew there was going to be a but. So however, they oftentimes lose the benefits by the end of kindergarten if they're not also enrolled in some kind of supplemental K through 3 enrichment program. So something else to give them a kind of high quality schooling experience throughout those early childhood years. So if they do not have that high quality experience, then the gains are basically gone by the end of 3rd grade. So this tells us that even if children have a very enriched and high quality preschool experience, if they don't have a high quality regular schooling experience, they will lose many of those benefits that were conferred to them through participating in Head Start. So very important then to continue to offer high quality experiences, especially for low income children. All right, so here's an example then. This is a video from the Abecedarian study, so started by Dr. Joseph Sparling. And so his goal was in North Carolina to provide to brand new babies and low-income children to be able to provide this full-day, year-round educational program to select groups of low-income children. So I'll let you watch in the video here so you can see a little bit more about what he did. But generally speaking, he wanted to target children that he thought would benefit from this the most. And that as a result of this, the children who participated in the study showed, as you see here in our research from the children who participated, so you can see that the IQ scores, there we go, from the treatment group. So those are the kids who participated in the Abecedarian study compared to the control group. So those were the kids who did not participate. You can see that especially at 1 year, big gains in terms of their overall average IQ score, and that those gains stayed fairly consistent even through adulthood. So take-home point is we need to provide these high-quality types of preschool experiences early in life, but also continue to offer those high-quality educational experiences throughout the child's life, okay? So that's one of the things that needs to happen. It can't just happen early in life, although that is incredibly important. It's not enough. We need to have that high-quality schooling all the way through for children to experience those maximum gains. All right, so I will post all of the links to these videos for you so that you have access to them. And I will see you on Thursday. See you later. Have a good day.